this is our stream mic.
Okay.
So later you just like stand here and speak, and
Is there a clicker?
yeah, I have a clicker.
Super, super.
So this is it. Then for your slides, just the
Yeah.
bottom one.
Hi everybody, thank you for waiting. We'll start shortly at 1:20. People outside or something?
No, they just fit here.
Yes, wait, she came in, did she? Hi everyone, thank you all for coming. Welcome to the screening of the last Wildcat of Singapore. I'm Anna and I'll be emceeing for today. My team and I are a group of students who are passionate about the environment and conservation. We chose a topic close to our hearts. Our project aims to introduce Singaporeans to our last remaining wildcat, the leopard cat. We hope to shed light on the many challenges the leopard cat faces, such as the illegal wildlife trade and increasing fragmentation of forests in Singapore. To learn more about our topic, we invited Marcus Chua to join us for the documentary. Currently working in the Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum, Marcus is a mammal researcher who has done extensive studies on the ecology and conservation of leopard cats in Singapore. Let's welcome Marcus to share his knowledge and tell us more about the elusive leopard cats.
Thanks very much. Sarah, okay, thanks so much. Well, thanks everyone for coming. So I would just like to, my name is Marcus, I'm from the Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum, and I would just like to share with you more about leopard cats in Singapore and what could be a reason why we are gathered here today and why we should be concerned about this small wildcat here. Is there a way to dim the screen so that people could see? Oh yeah. Super. Right, so this is a leopard cat. The photo was taken on Pulau Tekong in Singapore. But first, before we try to understand what we're having today, it's important to know what it was like in the past and how we got here. So in Singapore, where as far back as written records were available in 1819, this was how the island looked like. Clothed in greenery, primary forest that has never been cut, mangrove forests, as well as freshwater swamp. At that time, the population was about 150 people, and just 3 times the size of this room. Imagine that, right? 3 or 4 times. And the area was about 500 kilometers square, right? But fast forward to today, right? Our population size has increased tremendously to more than 5 million. The islands has gotten bigger, but if you look at the green areas that we have, right? Whatever that we know as primary is left with less than 1%. What you see, which is in light green, are actually the dark green pinpricks that's left on the island. The rest that you see in light green on the map on the right is secondary forest. So it shows that how little natural habitat is left for wildlife in Singapore, right? Whatever left is extremely precious, right? So with this, after losing so much habitat, naturally a lot of species have gone extinct, and in the process we lost the tiger in Singapore, the big cats in Singapore. We also lost the leopards. So the only wildcat that remains, the last wildcat, is the leopard cat. So this is a small wildcat, spotted domestic cat size, and its taxonomy is still a little uncertain, but it's currently classified as the mainland leopard cat, Prionylurus bengalensis. Right? So it didn't used to be uncommon. In fact, in 1924, Chasen, a mammologist from the then Raffles Museum, remarked that it was not uncommon, and it was found across the island in jungles in Changi, in Seletar, in Bukit Timah as well. But fast forward 70 years later, in 1994, when they were compiling the first Red Data Book of threatened species in Singapore, it's thought to be at the brink of extinction. Right? So within a short period of time, we didn't even know if there were leopard cats still left in Singapore. Then we got clues. Roadkills turn up. One roadkill turned up at Mandai Road of the BKE, and then there were records on Pulau Ubin, and people have cited leopard cats as well, but they were extremely rare. It was on Pulau Tekong much later. Right? So in the latest Red Data Book update in 2008, it's classified as nationally critically endangered in Singapore. Right? So why should we care about the leopard cat? So this is a species that is important ecologically because it's one of our last few mammalian predators. Right? So they control the population of small animals in the ecosystem, and also because this is an important part of our natural heritage. If we lose it, we'll lose the last wildcat in Singapore. Right? So where can leopard cats be found today? I embarked on a master's research in NUS, and after 2.5 years, this is some of the findings that we've distilled in the next couple of slides. So they are present in the remaining large forest fragments in Singapore. From the west, the left side, the western catchment, you see this one small, maybe a sub-adult in a tree. So Vilma in the audience here actually was there with me on the same night. We saw this sweet fellow in the tree. But during my study, the first leopard cat I saw was actually in the Central Catchment Nature Reserve, so at the second left from the bottom. And this individual, we think he's a male, and we found him on 1st April, and we nicknamed him April Fools from then on. Right? So here's our famous leopard cat, and also the mascot, the image for SWAG as well, the Singapore Wildcat Action Group. On the right, extreme right, on Pulau Tekong, where most of my work was done, we found quite a few leopard cats, and they seem to be doing well on the island. Right? So we know that that is the stronghold of the leopard cat in Singapore. And you see a camera trap image in the bottom right. Later on, a civet researcher working on Pulau Ubin had camera traps in the forest there. So these are forest cameras they put in the forest, and the animal passes, takes a photo, and she recorded a leopard cat on the island as well. So we know that they are in all the 4 major remnant forest fragments left. But later on, you'll see that they're actually fragmented, they're not connected to each other, so the populations are basically separate. Right? So one of the questions I asked during my work was, how many leopard cats are left in Singapore, and if there are very few, what can be done to help conserve the leopard cats here? Right? So by putting up camera traps in the forest, and by doing a statistical analysis, because a leopard cat cannot change its spot, so we can identify individual leopard cats. We estimate there are at least or about 21 individuals on Pulau Tekong. That was in 2012. And in all of Singapore, we think that there are less than 50, probably much fewer than 50, right? But what cheered us a little is that we recorded kittens during the 3-year study on in Singapore. So we know they are breeding in Singapore, and there might be still hope for a sustainable population on the island. Right? So the leopard cat is a really interesting species. So it comes out mostly at night. It lives in the forest. It can't survive in a parkland because there is no food, and requires forest cover because it's pretty shy. We note that it occurs more frequently in open areas compared to a mature forest where the canopy is closed. It's likely because this is more food or more prey can be found in areas in forests that's more open. They might be able to hunt easier there as well. And this is also a species that comes out after dark, right? So we note, if you look at the bottom right image, it is a plot of how many leopard cat images we got at different hours of the day. So from midnight to about 7 is when they are very active. And then during the daytime, 8 p.m. to maybe about 6 p.m., we had very few records. And when it got dark again in the evening to the nighttime, there was a spike in activity. So this is a cat that likes being in the dark. And that's also because most of its prey are nocturnal as well. So what does a leopard cat eat? Right? To figure out what it eats, I had to find out what comes out of it. So I picked up a lot of poo. Really smelly affair, but a piece of poo is extremely informative. So by washing up the poo at the bottom, so that what from the top of the image becomes the one at the bottom, you can see it's very fluffy, and most of it is fur from rodents. We got bones, we got teeth, we got feathers, we got exoskeleton. So we found out leopard cats mostly feed on rats. 90% of their diet by volume is rodents, rats, but it also feeds on reptiles like lizards, skinks, birds, and insects as well. There was one individual that ate a frog. Right? So by understanding its diet, we are able to protect its habitat and hopefully be able to allow this species to continue persisting in Singapore. Right? By collecting the scats, we also managed to get DNA from the leopard cat, and we did a population genetics analysis, and we found that there is very little genetic variation in leopard cats in Singapore. So they probably all descended from either one or two individuals, right? So this is how genetically uniform it is. So this is a concern because in populations that are extremely uniform, inbreeding may occur, and this has been shown to lead to several health issues, genetic diseases. So whether this is an issue in the leopard cat population in Singapore, this requires further study because we have not been able to allow a vet to examine the health of a leopard cat in Singapore yet. So this remains something that needs to be done. So with all this information, what is the future of the leopard cats in Singapore? Right? So it all depends on what we do, how we are stewards of our land as well, of this islands that we have in Singapore. So if you look at the map, so this is the URA proposed master plan 2019. You notice that the habitats are still not connected. And if you look at the first map before, maybe I'll just quickly jog back to this map in 2011. You notice that in the western catchment, you'll see this arm that's reaching out towards the central catchment nature reserve and Bukit Timah Nature Reserve. So that was some hope when I was doing the work that these two patches could be connected and present a larger single habitat for leopard cats. But unfortunately, this arm is mostly lost today because it's going to be cleared for development. But if you look back at the master plan here, right, you notice that the arm here remains as a corridor. So I think what happens is that this corridor didn't come by chance. If you look at the master plan before this master plan, so every 5 years Singapore issues a master plan to guide our development. This arm didn't even exist. It was slated, the whole area was slated to be cleared, but there was dialogue with the planners, with decision makers that this is important, and I think the National Parks Board also recognizes that connection between our forest fragments are important for connectivity. So planners designed a corridor, hopefully with more future efforts, all of these green areas could be connected. And maybe in the future there is a chance for the leopard cats in the western catchment to see leopard cats in the central catchment nature reserve. Right? So this remains a hope. Right? Meanwhile, this on our northern rightmost island, which Pulau Tekong, which is the stronghold of leopard cats, requires effort to protect them. Right? Next, another issue that is of concern for leopard cats in Singapore is urban mortality. So you see 4 images here of leopard cats that were dead between 2015 to 2019. So within 5 years, 4 leopard cats were recorded dead in urban environments. And most of them, we understand, they fall victim to roadkill. So they are fine in the forest, but the moment they step out of the forest, they get hit. So there is an urgent need to reduce this loss, because for a population of probably less than 20 on the island, if you lose 4 or 5 every 5 years, it's a sizable amount of the number of the population that is lost. So there needs to be more done to reduce roadkill in Singapore. Right? Next, poaching and the illegal wildlife trade is an issue. We don't know if there have been several records of leopard cats being confiscated from people's houses in the last 5 to 10 years as well. And a lot of them we found, some of them did not belong to, do not have the same genotype as the leopard cats in Singapore, but some of them did. So we don't know if this were actually taken from leopard cats in Singapore, or were they taken from somewhere really close like southern Johor. But in any case, this is a threat, because you know that there is a demand for leopard cats as pets in Singapore, and they definitely do not make good pets because they are wild. They have very different requirements from a domestic house cat. So if there is a demand, the population in Singapore is under threat as well. Right? So notice that, in the end, one of the people that was involved got fined under the Endangered Species Act, which doesn't seem like a very hefty penalty to me. Right? So what needs to be done? Right? First, there needs to be more conservation research. My work actually barely scratched the surface. We do not know whether the population that we estimate that we have in 2012, is it increasing, is it decreasing? So a follow-up work needs to be done to monitor the leopard cat population in Singapore before we can take any further action. We also need to monitor the health status of leopard cat population in Singapore and mitigate the threats that are to them either by having road calming measures or the ways to increase connectivity to reduce roadkill. Next, very few people actually know that there are leopard cats in Singapore. So having raising awareness of people is important. Because we need everyone to be able to advocate for the leopard cat in terms of developmental plan, for example. So that's why I think that this partnership between the students work to create a documentary is so important, working together with SWAG, because based on research and that we have done, we find that raising awareness could actually lead to greater conservation action in the form of, say, even donation to conservation charities. And this is also a first step that could lead to greater advocacy and engagement with decision makers into what happens to leopard cat populations and other wildlife in Singapore. So I would really like to applaud the work by Anna, Janelle, Sean, Wei Yang, Zhong Han, she around? She is outside, yeah, so Zhong Han outside. Manning the booth outside. Great work with this initiative, and really hats off to you. And this is really inspiring for me too. So thank you everyone for listening, and I can't wait to watch their documentary too.
Thanks, Marcus. Yes, you are exactly right. We embarked on this project because we wanted to help the leopard cats, not just to make an informative documentary. So it's unsurprising that because we wanted to help the leopard cats, we worked closely with SWAG, or the Singapore Wildcat Action Group. SWAG is a group of volunteers who are passionate about the conservation of wildcat species, but they particularly love Malayan tigers. I'll pass the time over to Dr. Vilma, co-director of SWAG, and she'll tell you more about how all of us can support SWAG in their efforts in wildlife conservation. Dr. Vilma, please. Thank you.
Where is the? Oh, this is the.
Yeah, this whole thing.
That's it.
Yeah, so you just speak into this.
Oh, speak into it.
Yeah, this is the clicker, so like just press this to go to the next slide. And
Which
this is
one?
back.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
every-
Okay. Thanks very much, Anna. And before we start, I'd like to thank the group too. So Wei Yang, Sean, Anna, Janelle, Jonghan, and the mentor Bambi. Thank you very much. And thanks so much, Marcus, for that very, very informative talk. A little bit about SWAG, the Singapore Wildcat Action Group, some of whom are here as well. Yeah, Anna is right. We have a special love for the Malayan tiger, and that's how we all got together. So SWAG members are actually all those who went to Malaysia on a catwalk, Citizen Action for Tigers. I think Marcus talked about the Malayan tiger was a native resident in Singapore, now locally extinct and globally critically endangered. The last census done in Malaysia, which ended last year, shows that we have less than 200 million tigers left in the world. And so SWAG has been working with the Malaysian Conservation Alliance for Tigers, or MyCat, which is an alliance of several different NGOs supported by Perhilitan or the Wildlife Department. If you're interested to find out more about MyCat, very simple website, www.mycat.my. So what did we do in Malaysia? We went on Citizen Action for Tigers Walk, which is anti-poaching and surveillance walk, looking out for signs of poaching and perhaps traps, and also to look for wildlife sign. And all this is done in collaboration with MyCat. We help MyCat to collect data on wildlife, and we help them set up camera traps, retrieve the SD cards from the camera traps and see the wonderful, precious wildlife that have walked in that area. That's probably one of the most exciting parts of a catwalk. And those of us who have been on a catwalk also enjoy just being in the forest. And us just being in the forest dissuades poachers from coming in. So that's how we help MyCat to protect the forest. We also plant trees. So those of us who have gone have planted several trees to restore the habitat at the area which MyCat works in, which is in Pahang. But ever since February of last year, our catwalks have been on hold. And we suspect that they won't start this year either. So we're waiting for a time when every one of you can go for a catwalk. But in the meantime, what we've done in 2020 is to try to change the way we do our advocacy and to raise funds. So what we did is we've promised MyCat to raise 25,000 for them every year, so that they can employ community rangers, who are the indigenous people from the Batik tribe. And they live there, they know the forest well. If they patrol the forest, it would be the best. However, MyCat needed funds for that, and our 25,000 is just a very small drop in the ocean. But we promised them that. However, we didn't manage to make it to 25,000 last year. We made it to 18,000 Singapore dollars, which we're pretty proud of. And how did we do that? Well, we had the Swag 100 challenge, which 31 of us volunteers took part in, where each of us ran or walked at least 100 kilometers and asked for donations. And several people here did the Swag 100 challenge last year, and we raised US 11,560, and that has been used toward the salary of community rangers. Of course, MyCat needed more money, and they are also very thankful that the government is also supporting their community ranger project. We also had webinars on wildcats because one of our goals is to create an awareness amongst people living in Singapore about wildcats of the world. So we had a webinar on the leopard cat done by Marcus, on the fishing cat, on the snow leopard, and on small wildcat conservation. We also launched our third children's book, Little Tiger and the Snow Leopards, and it's on sale for $12 outside. All proceeds from the sale of our books go to MyCat. We also had a kids online art workshop by Alpana, who is here. Thanks, Alpana, on how to draw a tiger. And we also planted trees with NParks, part of the 1 Million Trees project. So what are our programs for this year? And we hope you can really join us. We have a charity dinner planned for the end of July, which coincides with Global Tiger Day. You'll hear more about it if you maybe check our website and our social media, as well as put your name down for our newsletter. We're going to have Singapore Tiger Week, which is 3 days of webinars on tigers across their range. We're going to have the Swag 100 Challenge again, which is between September 25th and October 25th. September 25th, because that date is special, that is the date that Catwalk started back in 2010. We are hoping to raise 20,000 for the Swag 100 Challenge. So we need as many of you to take part as possible. We are also organizing 4 webinars this year: Clouded Leopard, Tiger Cat, Cheetah, and Flat-Headed Cat. That's the plan. And we have a Leopard Cat campaign that is managed by Rachel. Where are you, Rachel? Put up your hand. Yeah, Rachel. She's leading us on that. A little bit more on our Leopard Cat campaign. We've been very inspired by Marcus and by the Leopard Cats themselves to launch an awareness campaign. So we are hoping to do a community mural somewhere in Singapore. If possible, we do more than 1 mural, but we'll start with 1 mural. And we'll partner a mural organization called Mural Lingo to create an awareness about leopard cats. We hope to have a roving exhibition on leopard cat as well. And a few other campaigns, Roadkill. We hope maybe we can work with Jasvik, who was outside selling her posters here on animals that died at the hand of man. We also want to promote the fact that wildlife should not be pets. And we will this year have a kids book on leopard cats. So you might be asking, how can I help? Several ways. We need content creators. If you have a flair for writing stories, or have a flair for drawing, or have a flair for writing a blog or whatever, please come to us. We need help in content creation. In this photo, Linda is an author, and she wrote the children's books. So if you have a liking to create content which could help us in our posts in social media or any other format, we are looking for you. You could also make a video. Anya, who went on a catwalk, actually took catwalk videos and put it together into a 3-minute video. So we're looking for people to create more videos, short videos. We have the catwalk video footage already, but we don't have the expertise to put it together. So if you can do that, please let us know. There are different ways to advocate for our cause, and well, Marcus helped us by talking about leopard cats, and then Rachel put her talent on paper and drew a leopard cat, and created a bag, a tote bag, which we sold at $32.50. It's sold out, and all the proceeds are going to be going into our Leopard Cat mural project. So, you know, if you're an artist or just love drawing or if you have any ideas, do get in touch with us. So volunteer, to summarize, social media content creators, short videos, working with our current catwalk video footage, creating new content. We need digital marketers to market on our social media platforms our merchandise. We're not very good at doing that. Volunteer artists. We have Alpana. I forgot to let you know that one of the beautiful drawings, paintings was Alpana's earlier on. And for our silent auction, for our charity dinner, we need an auction lead, someone who's good at that, who loves to auction to help us. So if any of those is you, please let us know. You can email us at our email or get in touch with any of us. You can also buy our swag, and that's outside, our children's books and our t-shirts. Thank you to everyone. Please do follow us on our social media platforms, and thank you again to the students. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vilma. We hope that swag is able to keep up the good work. As you will see later when we screen the documentary, we could only produce it with the help of many people, one of which was Jasvik, who provided us with valuable images of leopard cat carcasses. Jasvik is an artist photographer who is currently working on Death by Men, a long-term project that aims to educate people through evocative visuals and narratives. Let's welcome Jasvik to share more about her work. Yeah, this is the mic, this is the clicker.
How do I click?
The bottom one.
Yeah, the bottom one should be
This one?
Yep, then it should change.
Oh.
Does it? Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
And top.
The
Is it
middle
top?
one goes up.
Yeah, middle.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's the laser or something.
Oh, okay, okay.
Try it.
Sorry. Yeah. So, hi everyone. I am Jasvik, and yeah, I tell stories with carcasses. So, yeah, so I am an independent artist photographer. So I'm known for my work, Death by Men, which actually uses visuals and narrative to convey the idea of our human presence on the life of wild animals. So all the animals featured in this animal obituary have actually died from man-made causes like roadkill, window strike, abuse, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there are actually many layers to my project, but I'll just be covering two today. So one is out of sight, out of mind, and then the other is the lack of local context. Right, so we can't deny that we are very distracted by city life, and that it's very easy for us to look beyond or overlook that there's more than just like pigeons, miners, and then the occasional sightings of wild boars and pythons. Yeah, because we live in a space that is so curated, it's manicured greenery. So a lot of us, a majority of us, actually depend on the media to inform us or to expose us to what's out there. But obviously they can't actually document every single case lah. So a lot of stories go unheard of, and that's where I realized that I want to tell the stories of these animals so that I can raise awareness on the issues that they face. Yeah. So as an artist, I want to use the issues that are brought up by research to actually inform my work, because I believe that stories are just as powerful as knowledge, because you know, fact or fiction, it still tends to remain in our mind. So yeah, as mentioned, I can't document every single case around the island, but at least I can try. If one or two stories can represent an issue faced by a species or a variety of species, then I think Deaf by Man have done something, has achieved in some aspect of creating awareness. So let's revisit some old news. One is in 2018, where a Sambadia was, it got into a 3-vehicle accident. But a lot of people actually were surprised not because of the accident, but they were surprised because it was a Sambadia. Because, especially my friends, when they actually, they quickly text me, they were not talking about the incident, they were talking about the very fact that how can a large mammal be roaming around an island and still go unnoticed. Then after that, there was the leopard cat roadkill. This one didn't have much news coverage, mentions of it online, but when I share it with my friends and family, same thing, complete disbelief. Then I realized that this is because we always link these animals to habitats overseas. We don't really think about them until the news media reports them. So which brings me to the next point, which is we lack the local awareness here in Singapore. So it's quite ironic that some of us can probably name more animals overseas than we can name those living right here. I don't know about this generation, but when I was growing up, back in kindergarten, primary, secondary school, I don't really recall having much exposure to local wildlife. So my image of wildlife has always been stuck to those in National Geographic, Animal Planet, or those running in the African plains. And yeah, even going on field trips is to the zoo. And I learned about animals that you can't really find in Singapore. So it results in a mentality that I grew up with, thinking that Singapore has no wildlife and we have no issue here to worry about. Oops. Yeah. So for some reason, our attention is very drawn to things that are away from home, very far away from home. And yes, they require very serious attention, but we also need to learn to draw our focus back to our own backyard. So we need to be aware of what we have as much as what we are aware of what exists elsewhere. So when I decided to pursue a project on wildlife, when I was doing my FYP back then, I decided to take full focus on Singapore. And I want to use these reported issues and translate them into something that can hopefully demand attention from everyone, including those who are not too interested in the environmental scene. Yeah, so I ended up with obituary. And yeah, I wanted people to stop and reflect. I want them to ask questions and also to engage in conversations, because this is something we all need to discuss on. And yeah, it's quite a risk creating this piece at first, because I don't know how people will react. They say pantang. So I figured that, yeah, I just went ahead with it, and if it stirs some kind of reaction or emotion, negative, positive, at the end of the day, it's still a reaction, and it has grabbed attention. So the idea of this obituary approach is also partly because we don't want to talk about death. We don't like to talk about facing harsh reality. But the problem is that this is the reality, and we need to confront them. So, of course, Death by Man is not just about growing a whole obituary and talking about the heavy topic of death, but a huge part of it involves people interaction, collaboration, because wildlife conservation is everyone's responsibility. So, for example, before this project took shape, I actually did image crowdsourcing. So it was very interesting to hear many different stories from the general public who actually share things like their encounters or how they felt, or even question what are the ways that they can mitigate such problems. Yeah, and it opened up a lot of different conversations. Then when it finally went on to me collecting actual carcasses, the stories became more elaborate and the discussions became more in-depth. So like up there, it's actually a candid shot. I didn't know my friend was taking that photo. I actually fished out a dead pigeon from my school water feature, and then some schoolmates actually came by, and the next thing we know, we were talking about wildlife conservation locally, not globally. And these schoolmates, over the course of 4 years, having spent my time with them, this is the first conversation I have with them over a dead pigeon. So it's really interesting to know that people are actually interested, but they just need an entry point to talk about it. Yeah, and it made me realize just how important it is to engage in a two-way discussion rather than a one-way education. Yeah, and yeah, so at the end of the day, it's really fulfilling to have a project that bridges research and public education together. So to end things off, I just want to thank Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum, ACRES, WRS for supporting this project since 2017. And of course, everyone who has contributed in some way or another. Yep, so if you want to continue your journey with Deaf by Man, you can do so on Instagram. Thank you.
Thanks, Jasvik. I think your work is really beautiful and thought-provoking, so if anyone hasn't checked it out yet, yeah, do check out her Instagram and her website. Her photos are really good. Yeah, so it's almost time for us to show you the finished documentary. But before that, why not get all the details and insider info on it? Wei Yang, our director and group leader, will share more about our film with you.
So, hello everyone, my name is Wei Yang, and I'm the director and editor for our short documentary. So, the idea came about when Sean and I were discussing ideas for our Seeds of Good project, and because the project was so open-ended, we decided that we wanted to explore and to try something we always wanted to try, and at the same time, we wanted to do a project that would influence the community beyond just its timeline. So, being photographers, we both decided that we can operate a camera, right? So why not try to shoot a short film? Well, it turns out it wasn't that easy, but I think we pulled through. So why did we choose leopard cats? I grew up, like a lot of animal lovers here, watching documentaries. Actually, my dad used to force me to watch the 10 p.m. Chinese news, and because I wanted to watch the documentaries, I would sneakily turn it to Art Central, which at the time was screening nature documentaries at the same time, and I would just pray that he wouldn't switch it back. So that's probably why I ended up almost failing my mother tongue, but the point is that I watched a lot of documentaries. So how is it that for 16 years, I did not know about the existence of leopard cats? And these wildcats can be found in Singapore, like right here within our own country, in our forests. So we realized that leopard cats are truly underrepresented, right? And most people probably still don't even know they exist. But they hold so much potential to be the face of conservation in Singapore, right? And they're such beautiful and adorable cats. So when we met up with the amazing people at the Singapore Wildcat Action Group, we pitched our idea to make a mini documentary on leopard cats, and they loved it, and so the rest is history. One of the biggest challenges that we faced came in telling a compelling story. we wanted to link the many issues that leopard cats face in a compelling way, right? In a way that's coherent and a way that makes sense. And also choosing words for the script so that it would flow seamlessly between the interviewees and the narrator, and at the same time, words that would gently tug on your heartstrings. That proved to be quite a challenge. And the biggest takeaway, I think, was getting to talk to all the incredible people that we had to interview. Right, so Marcus, Alfred at Designer Bangles Singapore, Anru from Acres, and Vilma, Carmen, and Rachel from Swag. Thank you for being so accommodating during those interviews. And I found myself so intrigued that sometimes I would end up asking questions that I didn't get them to prepare for. But it was because of all the interesting viewpoints that you guys had to share. And I'd like to thank everyone else who has helped out in the project in one way or the other. So Jasvik for providing us, letting us use photos of leopard cat roadkill. Anya from My Cat for letting us use footage from my cat walks. WRS for letting us film their leopard cats, without which we probably wouldn't have found a wild leopard cat to film. And the Community Engagement Fund from NUS for funding the project, Charmaine and the rest of the Office of Student Affairs for supporting this project and this event. My good friend Hannah for being such a lovely narrator, Sean, Janelle, Zhenghan, and Anna for being wonderful teammates, Bambi for providing guidance on the documentary process, as well as giving great feedback, our honorary teammate Kelly for always being with the group, and her very welcome tendency of treating us to good food. And last but not least, everyone who made their way down this weekend to support us, and also everyone in the stream. Thank you for being here, and without further ado, I present to you the last Wildcat of Singapore.
This is Singapore, a tiny city-state in Southeast Asia known for its bustling city. But even in this concrete jungle, nature is never too far away. Within the small patches of forest left in Singapore lie secrets that few know about, and even fewer ever lay their eyes upon. First thing you notice is their striking coats, and it becomes clear how they got their name. This is the leopard cat. They might not look very different from domestic cats in size or demeanor, but make no mistake, the leopard cat is as wild as a wild cat gets. We met up with Marcus, a mammal researcher who did his master's project on leopard cats.
What I find fascinating about leopard cats is that I think they've got everything that people are interested about wildcats in a small package. So just watching them hunt and stalk their prey or just moving, they're so graceful and so beautiful. They have a pale, tawny brown or orange coat, and they live in the wild in Singapore, and they're actually our last wildcat that is extant after the extinction of tigers and leopards in Singapore. My research is basically centered about two main points. One is the status of leopard cats in Singapore, how many there are, where they are, and the second point is what can we do to conserve leopard cats. To detect the presence of leopard cats, we both use a passive method, which is a camera trap, the little boxes with camera in them. If an animal passes, we get a photo and a timestamp. And this also allows us to estimate the numbers by looking at their individual spot patterns and running a statistical method through it. So we estimated an estimated number of about 21 individuals on Pulau Tekong. But population numbers are too small on the main island of Singapore to get a decent population estimate, but it's likely to be less than 20.
With such small numbers left in the wild, it's no wonder few Singaporeans have heard of this feline. Across Asia, leopard cats face two main threats: habitat loss and poaching.
I think that's one reason why the numbers are in Singapore are so small. There's such a small forested areas in Singapore.
As our city continues to develop, our forests are cleared for construction, forcing animals out of their homes and into new danger.
Unfortunately, a lot of leopard cats that we see are only as a result of carcasses, and these were killed on the roads on Mandai Road, Changi, in Lim Chu Kang as well.
There have been a number of leopard cat roadkills, one notably in 2018 in the Mandai area, where forest clearing for a new ecotourism hub is thought to have driven many animals to move around. In addition to the leopard cat, a sambar deer and pangolin were victims of roadkill the very same year.
One thing that is highly urgent right now, because the population number is so small, is to mitigate roadkills, either by connecting forested areas or having speed calming measures that would prevent leopard cats from being killed on the roads.
In the greater region, leopard cats face an even graver threat: poaching.
There is a report that it takes 16 leopard cats to make one fur coat, and they are still sold around the world, although it's highly regulated now.
And animals from other countries in the region, they actually suffer, where they are poached and brought into Singapore to meet the demand for the exotic pets here. For example, in 2018, we rescued 4 leopard cats from the illegal pet trade, just acres itself. So that does not include the other tip-offs that the agencies may get, or other animals, individuals that say the zoo may rescue as well. That was quite scary and alarming for us, and even though thankfully 2 of them were repatriated back to Malaysia, to the wild, this happened in January 2020.
Those 2 leopard cats were only released to the wild 2 years after they were discovered, during which they had to undergo rehabilitation in the zoo.
So repatriations are very resource-intensive operations, but again, it also sends a very strong signal and commitment of all the parties involved, and we are basically reversing the whole process, right? From poaching, smuggling, illegal sales, and keeping, back to giving them a second chance in the wild again. So it's a beautiful thing to do for these animals, but also it is a very harsh reminder that we need to stop and end the trade itself. It is good that we could actually send 2 of them back, but we have to remember that the animals who are rescued, or the information on tip-offs that are given, it's really the tip of the iceberg. So a lot of cases do not get noticed by people, do not get reported, or the transaction already happens that it never surfaces to the agencies or groups like us. So that's why we don't look at just the number of animals whom we have rescued. It's really a tip of the iceberg.
Although it is illegal to keep leopard cats as pets, some turn to a different feline with the same beautiful spotted coat. Meet the Bengal cat.
I am so attracted by the beauty of this cat. There's no other cats in this world that has the beauty of a Bengal cat. Their markings, their color, their personality. My name is Alfred. I am 41 years old and I'm the owner of Designer Bengal Singapore. This Bengal cat starts from 1972. Okay, the first creation of this cat. Okay, by this lady called Jin Meal.
Bengal cats are the offspring of leopard cats and domestic cats. The first generation of these cats are called F1 hybrids, the second F2, and so on.
All of the cat in Singapore are all more than 5 generations away. In Singapore, it is totally against the law for you to have a Bengal cat that is nearer to the ancestor, which is the Asian leopard cat, like F1, F2, F3, F4, all these are not allowed in Singapore. Singapore is very, very strict.
Even so, some are concerned about how the demand for Bengal cats may still affect wild leopard cat populations.
Where are the leopard cats coming from in the first place for you to generate the second generation? So how are we aware, if I were to buy a Bengal cat legally, a designer Bengal cat, which is actually legal in Singapore, and people pay thousands of dollars to buy a Bengal cat, and one thing I would ask is, do you exactly know where your leopard cat came from? And in the process of obtaining a wild leopard cat, do you know how many of them died? Were, a litter of kittens picked up? Do you know how many of them survived? What happened to others? So these are the questions that none of us would have answers for.
So if you buy a Bengal cat, my feeling is that you will be driving up the demand for leopard cats. Instead, if you love cats, give cats and kittens from our local shelters a home.
The Singapore Wildcat Action Group, or SWAG, was founded in 2019. Their mission is to teach Singaporeans about different wildcat species around the world, especially those less known. But their ultimate goal is to raise funds for the conservation of the Malayan tiger.
I think in Singapore, most of us are very fascinated with wildcats like the lions, the cheetahs that occur in other regions, but many people don't actually know that we have leopard cats in Singapore. So the first step for SWAG is to raise public awareness about leopard cats. So we have discussed with Marcus about how we can do public campaigns and outreach activities to introduce just a general public to the existence of leopard cats in Singapore. So SWAG is working together with other NGOs and also other companies, and we will want to bring leopard cat campaign into urban spaces and also park spaces.
We'd like to invite everyone to join us to promote leopard cats, to share what they know about leopard cats with their friends and families, so people are better aware that we have this wildcat, what the threats are that they face, and how we can ensure their conservation.
Beyond just Singapore, SWAG also promotes volunteer activities that raise funds and spur citizen action to protect the wildcats in Malaysia.
All the members on SWAG, we were all cat walkers. So cat walks are a citizen conservation program that encourages regular people to go into the forest in Malaysia to act as extra boots on the ground and eyes and ears in the forest to help spot illegal activities.
We help the Malaysian Conservation Alliance for Tigers look for illegal activities in the forest. It could be snares and traps, it could be illegal mining or unlicensed logging, and help them report this to the authorities. Also, just by our presence in the forest, we are dissuading poachers from coming into the forest.
Leopard cats face an uncertain future. Between pressures from habitat loss and the illegal wildlife trade, they are on the decline in many regions. In Singapore, their situation is critical. The leopard cat population is tiny and divided into disconnected forests. This makes them vulnerable even to minor disturbances and makes every mortality especially tragic.
It's our last wildcat in Singapore after the extinction of the tiger and the leopard. It's extremely important in terms of our natural heritage as well, so we don't want to lose that.
One of the things that many people ask is that, so what is ICAS doing about it? What is NParks doing about it? What is my cat doing about it? What's the zoo doing about it? I think one of the questions that we need to ask is, what are you doing about it? Can we speak up on the issues, individuals, can we speak up about the issues that matter to us a lot?
Singapore has already lost much of our biodiversity. Whether the leopard cat continues to stalk our forests, or whether it silently dies out like the others, is up to us.
Are there any diseases that the domestic cat could have infected the wild leopard cats to cause, the huge decrease in their population? Just wondering.
So the question you have is whether there are any diseases that domestic cats can transmit to the cats that we interact with them. So we have no information about this in Singapore, but we know that there are several diseases that leopard cats can contract from domestic cats that can harm them. So for example, in Thailand, leopard cats have been recorded with some diseases, could be feline parvovirus and things like that. And researchers there have found that some of these diseases don't kill the cat, but they weaken them enough or they slow their response enough that they can't escape from cars on the roads. So we don't know whether this is true in Singapore. That's why it's so important to examine the leopard cats in Singapore. Vets would be very helpful in the conservation efforts like this to find that out. Thanks so much for asking the question.
Great. Actually, I have some questions of my own. Dr. Zoma, actually, how receptive has the public been so far in all of your SWAG initiatives?
Thanks, Anna, for that question. I think I would say, and invite the SWAG members around to join me to answer that. I think public has been very helpful, and our webinars are well attended. So usually we have like maybe between 50 to 80 people attending the webinars, which is great. From 2015 to 2020, we've had about 300 people participate in Catwalk. Not through SWAG alone, but through MyCat and our sister organization called Cicada Tree Eco Place. So we are very heartened by this. So I would say yes. We are also very thankful for donors who have given towards our fundraisers for the Malayan tiger. It's been good, but we encourage every one of you to take part in our activities this year. Thank you.
Great. That sounds really encouraging. Yeah. Anyone else has questions? You can just shout it out. No issue.
Yeah, and the guys in the stream as well. If you guys want to ask a question, you can just type it into the chat box.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a question
Thanks for the question. So the question was basically if we have plans for continuity for our project, right? Right, so continuity has always been on our mind ever since we thought about this initiative. So one thing we are thinking about doing is working with more independent filmmakers that kind of want to do things within the same theme. It doesn't have to be with wildcats. It can be with our other animals that we have in Singapore, like snakes, birds, just to name a few. So we're thinking of working with other independent film creators, and this Seeds of Good project is an initiative by NUS for NUS scholars. So we hope to engage the future batches of scholars as well. Yeah, so if any of them are keen on doing something like a documentary, we'll provide them the guidance, the links to people within the wildlife community. So hopefully we can produce maybe one documentary every year. I think that would be great. Thanks for the question.
I think we can take one more question before we end off. Yeah.
Yeah, so this would be to Marcus, and maybe a follow-up question for Tim's about domestic cats. And you addressed the disease problem. In North America and Australia, feral and house cats that aren't kept in the house are a huge problem. And I wonder if anyone is doing a study in Singapore to see the extent to which domesticated cats and feral cats, I'm not sure, are a big problem here, but just to the extent that they're competing for a food source that maybe our wildcats would use.
Okay, so I'll repeat the question for the benefit of the people watching in the stream. So the question was whether there's been any studies that has examined whether domestic cats have an impact on native biodiversity, and especially leopard cats. So broad answer is that there is some effort to look at this. So formerly ABA, now NParks, is studying the domestic cat populations in I think St. John's Island. I think they're looking at that. So that island is part of it's forested. So I think they're looking at where they move around and what's their impact. Beyond that, for domestic dogs, there is a study at NTU looking at impact in the forest too. But for my study, when I was working on Pulau Tekong, there were at least 2 domestic cats on the island, and I was very mindful as to where they were and what they were doing as well. I noticed that they did not enter the forest. They were always around human habitation. They may be close to some areas where leopard cats were, but I've never seen any interaction. But it is likely that they may be competing with leopard cats for some prey in the fringe, maybe lizards, maybe rats. So that would be something also to be concerned about, whether domestic cats may be competitors with native wildlife as well. Yeah, thanks so much for the question too.
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Questions for Jasper. Yeah, I felt very touched, by your project, and I'm just wondering, how do you cope yourself, seeing all these, dead animals? How do you keep yourself going?
Of course, when I first started, I didn't know what to expect. So, yeah, for human corpse, I'm actually honestly afraid of dead things. So at the very beginning, it was something that I wasn't familiar with, and then I had to straight away dive into carcasses. So it was uncomfortable, but I was driven by the fact that I really wanted to tell their stories. So I just went ahead with it, and yeah, the first big carcass was actually the Raffles banded langur, which I went to Lee Kong Chian Museum to photograph. So it was already, it went under the necropsy, so the ribs were already open, so that one was a huge shock to me for the very first time when Marcus actually took it out of the bag. But yeah, from then on, I realized that was the trigger that really made me realize how important this was, because that became the talking point. And thereafter, I just got used to it in that sense, but it still does affect me in some way or another. Yeah. Thank you.
I must say that Jasmine handled it really well when she came. She was very professional. She laid out I think it was a white piece of paper or
it's a gunny sack.
A gunny sack, and
Yeah.
she put it on. She got the angles, and the impact is really good. And I think we should plug an upcoming exhibition by Jasmine. Maybe you want to talk more about it too.
Oh, the forum? Oh, yeah. So I'm having a forum / exhibition in March, on the very first week of March, 6th March. That is in celebration of World Wildlife Week. So that one will feature ACRES and NUSA, booth for education, and then also a mini exhibition for my work, all the obituaries, and of course separately is a registered forum where youths will come together and then they will discuss about our relationship with wildlife here in Singapore. So it's not just a kind of surface event where you talk about what wildlife there is in Singapore and all those. We want to dive deeper and talk about things like, is fear nurtured or nature? You know, the tolerance in Singapore, those kind of topics. So yeah, do come by on 6th March. The info is actually, we are going to blast the publicity tomorrow. So it's going to be on Deaf by Man social platform. I'm not sure Marcus or Lee Kong Chen is going to blast it. Are you guys?
I'll see if we can do something.
Yeah, then ACRES, because all of them are our partners. Yeah. So yeah, the thing is, Deaf by Man, the obituary, will not be showcased online because it's actually a very experiential kind of project where you need to feel overwhelmed by the numbers. Yeah, so if you're free, please do drop by.
Great, thank you. I hope that exhibition goes well.
Thank you.
Actually, we have a question from the stream from Evan. I think this one's directed towards Marcus. If the leopard cat mostly eats rats, what are the main barriers to it expanding its range into smaller patches of forest? And is it possible to improve the park connectors around CCNR and DCNR to encourage connectivity?
Thanks for the question, Evan. So, as a rat eater, leopard cat is estimated to eat maybe 3 to 6 rats a night, for example. So a small patch may not have enough prey base to sustain a leopard cat over the long term, for over many nights. So it's not likely a small patch, say less than maybe 10 hectares, would be able to sustain a leopard cat for more than 3 days even. So that's why we need a large area of forest and large areas of forest that are connected to be able to provide a prey base to keep a leopard cat going. And one leopard cat is enough, you need a population of them. So that's why the remaining forest fragments in Singapore are really important. In terms of dispersal through the park connectors, I think that the current park connectors as they are might be a little thin and too open. Leopard cats like open forests, but the park connector might be too open for them to disperse linearly because of the traffic on the left and the right of them. So if the park connector was a bit more dense, perhaps maybe 20, 30 years down the road, as some of this really get denser, or if they get added, more buffers are added, there is potential for leopard cats to use maybe some of them. Yeah, thank you.
Great. I think that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you so much, leaders. Before we officially conclude this event, the last Wildcat of Singapore team would like to thank everyone who has helped us along the way. Thank you everyone who came down here to support us, and everyone on the stream. We really appreciate it. We couldn't have done this without the help and support of so many people. We hope our work is able to aid in the efforts of leopard cat conservation and was able to inspire you to also do your part in protecting our biodiversity. And that concludes our event, and also some shameless promo. There's merchandise by Swag and Jaswick outside, so do check out my booths when you go out. Yes.
the narrative was good. The narrative from the start to the end, it told the story.
Yeah.